Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is jfuruness, and today I'm going to show you how to properly document your Python package with a README. Hopefully, with this type of documentation, you won't need to answer a lot of questions, and it will save you a lot of time answering them in the long run. With that, let's dive in. Going to minimize this here. So you can see here that I have pushed my code to GitHub. If you guys don't use GitHub, maybe you use Perforce or something else, but oftentimes you will have some sort of version control, which keeps track of all the changes in your code. If you don't know what GitHub is or how to add something to GitHub, there are many tutorials out there. I recommend you watch them. I'm not going to go over it here because there's just countless of them, so there's no point really. So I've uploaded my code to GitHub. I'll leave the link in the description. And when you upload your code to GitHub or different version control systems, they will often display the README. The README is a file that I've added in the top level here for the metadata. So you can see this readme.md along with my setup.py, requirements.txt, etc. Now this file is in Markdown, but GitHub or whatever version control you're using will display this as normal, good-looking text. If you want to know how to edit Markdown, I really recommend stackedit.io. Stackedit.io, you can click Start Writing, and you will have on the left the raw Markdown, and on the right, you will have what it will look like when it's done. So in this video, I'm going to go over how to do basic Markdown just so that you can write your own README and a good README format. To start with, we'll go over the README format. Normally, you will have a header like this. And if you look here, the header actually is just a hash. So one hash is the biggest, two hashes, it will make it smaller and smaller and smaller. So normally you'll have the name of your package as the header. Then you have a very short description of the package, and you'll usually have your table of contents. So these are all actually hyperlinks, right? So anybody can come to your README, and instead of having to read the entire document, they can just click usage, and it'll jump right to usage. And let's say they want to jump back to the top, they go back to the top. Then they might go to the installation, they'll see how to install it, and so on. So in this table of contents, you will basically want these things. And again, for READMEs, I almost always just copy paste one README to another and edit it afterwards. So I usually have the package name, which jumps to the top, the description, the usage, which will be how to use the file, the installation, how to install it, how to test it, how to develop or contribute to it, history, the credits, and so on. And I'll go over each one of these in more detail. So to start with, you have the description. This is just a very short description. With these, I usually have two headers because they aren't as important as the first one, and I'll usually have a link to the top of the file. For links, all you have to do is just put square brackets over the thing you want to be displayed, and then in parentheses, you just do hashtag and then that header. That's it. So you can, again, just copy paste what I have in my README into your README and change the names. After your description, usually you will have the usage. In the usage, I have two sections. One is in a script, which will be purely for development most of the time. So you'll have how to import your file, how to change the defaults. So you can see here, I have how to import my work login script, how to instantiate it, how to configure it, and how to run it. It's very important that you have very explicit usage examples 9 times out of 10, if you get a question on your package, it will be either for the installation or for the usage. So you should have a very clear set of examples that will address all possible questions so that if anybody does give you one, you can just send them the documentation rather than having to go through it yourself. To have a code block like this, you just have these 3 little kind of apostrophes and 3 at the bottom, and you have Python after them. So that is how you do a little code block. Again, you don't need to memorize this. Just look at my README file and you can see it in the stackedit.io. Link will be in the description. And again, I have from the command line things you can run in a terminal. In this case, login and configure. We went over in the last section, I think it was part 4, the setup.py, how to have your entry points. So these were the 2 entry points that you had: login, which logs you in, and configure, which configures how you log in. After that, I usually include the installation, because if you think about it, oftentimes when people come to your README, they'll be looking for these 2 things, right? The usage or the installation. They'll only install it once, so probably usage will be more important. That's why that's on top, and this is second. The installation, you are going to want the explicit commands to install it. You should not have like, oh, download this. You should have the bash commands that can be copied, pasted, and run. Another very important thing for the installation, you usually are going to want system requirements. These might be operating systems, they might be RAM requirements, they might have certain disk setups, certain permissions that you might need if you need sudo to run your code, all kinds of different things. So usually very important to have system requirements for bigger scripts or packages. Then you'll have your testing. I think this actually might be a bit outdated, but testing, this is how to test your package from install. I'm not really going to go over this here because I will go over it in a future video, how to do proper PyTest with your Python packages. Then you'll have your development/contributing section. You'll have your basic format for development. So, forking the code, creating a branch. And again, this will be very different depending on the version control you have. But for me, I use Git. This is how you would do it in Git. You just have the step-by-step instructions on how to develop it. And here, another thing that's usually important, any notes for developers that they might need to develop on this. For example, if you could say how to extend this certain part, and you could give an example of that, this would be the place to include that. Then you'll have your history. Your history basically consists of every change that you've made to this package over time. So I'll have my commits here, so the version number and then the changes. And the purpose of this is so that somebody later can come back and see, okay, maybe I have a history here that says broke backwards compatibility. And let's say, okay, clearly I need to update this. Or maybe I'll have something here that says fixed security bug. And then they'll need to update their stuff. So it's just a good way of tracking your changes and what you did. Very, very brief summaries for your releases here. After that, I have my credits. It's always good to include credits, people that helped you out. You can say, oh, thanks for my boss for allowing me to work on this, whatever it is for you. And I also like to include a list of all the Stack Overflow or, URLs that I've found for questions, things like that here. Then you'll have your license. You can make this point back to the actual license file if you want to. Again, I don't know the best license to have. BSD is just an open source one that I use by default. Usually also you will have a to-do or possible future improvements. So, here I just say better testing. Again, this is just like a rinky-dink script, so it's not really important because it's not used by anybody else other than me. But you want good testing. Maybe you want cross-platform compatibility. Anything you want long-term, you're definitely going to want to list here. And then you'll have frequently asked questions, or FAQ. So these might be things that developers would commonly ask you. So this is just obviously a joke, but if they might say how to back up a table in a database, you would have that here. Or maybe they'll say, why did you have this design decision? And you'll have that here. So if you get the same question more than a couple times, just add it to the frequently asked questions section. And another one that isn't in this script, but can be nice to include in a README is actually design choices or design decisions. Sometimes this is nice for bigger packages so that you can have a section where you go over why you made certain design decisions that might not be obvious to future developers. It can always be nice to have a section like that. So this is basically how you write a README. As far as the markdown of it goes, again, the hashes, that's how you make something bigger or smaller. The less hashes are in front of it, the bigger it is, the more important. Just a simple asterisk will be the bullet points if you want to use those. A hyperlink will be in this format. So what you want to show up in the text, that's in square brackets, and the link itself will be in the parentheses. And then as far as code blocks, just where did we go? There we go. As far as code blocks go, just again, the 3 apostrophes and then Python or whatever language it is you're using, and then 3 at the bottom. And I misspoke. Actually, it's not apostrophes. Apostrophes would be like that. It's actually in the top left of your keyboard. You'll have this kind of back tick. So it's very different than an apostrophe. Shouldn't have said that. But that is how to do the code block. And anything that you need to learn about Markdown, you can just Google. It's very, very simple and straightforward. It does not need to be fancy at all. And the whole point of it is so that when you upload a script to GitHub, this is displayed on the very first page. So when I go to my libwork login, I see the GitHub page with all these different links here. So I can, okay, I'm on libwork login. I'll go to usage. Maybe I need installation, so I'll click on the installation. And it just makes it really easy for future developers to work and develop and use your projects without having to talk to you and ask you how to use them. So with that is how you do a README. Stay tuned for the next video where we will be going over how to actually upload your scripts to PyPy so that they can be pip installed by anybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching the video. It really means a lot to me. If you could leave a like, that really would do a lot of good for such a small channel like mine. Also, feel free to hit that subscribe with the notification bell for more future content. If you have any questions, comments, topics you want to be covered, feel free to comment down below and I will respond to all the comments. If you want private tutoring or consulting, my email is in the description. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you next time.